Hey, it's your girl, Jessie Heron, host of Rediscover Your Story, a podcast for marketers who need a break from everyday learning, but still want to hear from like-minded professionals on all things creative. Today, we have Karen Forgus. She's been with the Cincinnati Reds since 2006, and she has seen everything. And right now, there's so much to be excited for with the Reds. Quick call out, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you want to see our beautiful faces and get more content from Resolve, you can watch this podcast on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and click the bell to be notified whenever new episodes drop. So grab your peanuts and your Cracker Jacks, and let's rediscover her story. Our conversation started, girl. We're going.
Oh, good. Well,
here we are. We're with Karen Forgus of Cincinnati Reds on Rediscover Your Story podcast. We've already started.
And you know, Jessie, I just got off of a phone call with Jesse Cole,
really,
who is renowned because he is the inventor of the Savannah bananas. Yes.
What?
He's written a book called Fans First, and they're coming to Cincinnati. We're bidding on it anyway, trying to get them for 2025.
How can I help you get it?
Yeah,
I'll do whatever.
Oh my gosh. You know, we just hung up the phone talking to Jesse and his whole team, and they are so authentically committed to the game of baseball, fun, and the fans, period. And it resonates so well that it's obviously grown from this little local phenomena to now a traveling mega event.
It's almost like the Harlem Globetrotters for baseball.
Yeah,
right?
It is. It really is. And because, you know, we're in the business of baseball and we're in a league and it's a profession, we don't have a lot of the leeway to have fun with it.
Yeah.
So they've been able to do that really well. They have fun with the game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There are so many hunks on that team. And I say that with my husband probably listening to this. There are a lot of hunks.
Well, I did not know that.
Okay. You got to start following them on Instagram.
Okay. Cuckoo-ca-choo. There I'll be.
And my daughter and I will watch, you know, we'll go through a couple reels or whatever. And she's like, oh, Mom, go back to that guy from the Savannah Bananas. I'm like, I'll go back. Let's watch that one again.
Well, that'll be it. So 2024 is the first year they're going to go to Major League Baseball parks.
Okay.
And so from the time that they announced that they were going, the signups, 100,000 people on wait lists.
I got on.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. Because to your point, I think that there's like surrounding cities where maybe they said that they might be.
Yes, in 24 that's part of the reason we were kind of waiting, because they're going to do multiple nights in Columbus, multiple nights in Louisville. They are going to do the Cleveland Guardians Stadium, but they're going to then I can't imagine they won't be here in Cincinnati in 25, because we're working toward, the devil's always in the details, just trying to get it all ironed out. But the Visit Cincy is all in.
Yes.
The Banks programming group is all in, and it's going to be a phenomena. So anyway, but that's like how my day rolls. You just never know what's going to be the next 10 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, very much so.
Do you love it? Do you love
your
job?
You know, it's one of the few places that you can work where people come to have fun.
Oh,
I don't go to Kroger to have fun. I mean, Kroger's great, but I don't go there to have fun.
Right.
So when I started at the Reds, it was in December of 2006.
Okay.
And it was at the end of the first year that the new ownership group had come in. Yeah. And my very first desk was overlooking the main gates.
Okay.
And that year the team wasn't great.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a way,
they've had ups and downs for a long time.
They did. Yeah. Early on, because they really hadn't even tried to tap in yet to kind of create this mojo of the team again. And I felt like I worked at a casino because everybody was walking in happy and leaving sad. I'm like, what is this? You know what I mean? But the other amazing thing was, it's one of the few places you can go where, first of all, we have 81 home games, so it is a 6-month economic driver, and but it's all age groups.
It is.
I could look at it and there's families, there's date night, there's groups of friends, people in suits. There's just, everybody's kind of coming together to have fun. So it's pretty special.
So I have to tell you a quick little story. Yeah. So the Reds is also, one of the only ballparks where you can bring in your own drinks, your own food, right?
You're exactly right.
And I have to tell you, so my husband and I, when we first had our daughter and we would go to a different location, we would go try out their minor league team. We just loved going to some of the minor league teams when you go out into other cities. And I called ahead to the Nashville Sound, I believe was what they are. And I was just kind of asking questions. I'm like, oh, we just want to get some tickets and whatever. And it's our first time coming. So what's your policy on bringing in like food and drink and stuff? And he goes, what? What are you talking about? He's like, you can't bring in food and drink. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? I'm like, you're like the minor league team. At our Major League Baseball team, we can bring in an entire Chipotle order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we bring in like Chipotle catering, basically, like an entire box. And you're telling me I can't bring it in? He's like, that's crazy. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's very, very rare.
It's very rare.
But it's one of the important pieces of the stewardship. That's why it's important to have local owners, because they're so committed to making sure, because the team's been around 154 years. It's been around such a long time.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that you have to be, and we have, again, 81 home games. The Bengals have 8.
Right.
So you have to try to get people to want to come more than once.
Right.
And then how do you make it? Because it's an expense.
It is an
So
expense.
what can we do on that front? Because we don't really control the parking. We don't own the ballpark. And, what can you manage? What can you control? So that's part of it.
Yeah. And it's become, honestly, I think about my kid's age and I'm thinking like, what a time to be a kid. What a time to be alive. I mean, you've got such a fun baseball team to be looking at. I mean, you've got, Ellie De La Cruz, right? The cruise missile.
It's unbelievably fun, isn't it?
It's so fun.
And it's so authentically, those guys are just really, they're dynamic. When they started to really click and things were becoming really, it's evident that they've got something special going on. And, they started with the Viking helmet, and that started in spring training, and all of a sudden they were doing it. And we, the obviously people in our creative services and our social and all of our, we've got just a supercharged group of talented people. And they're like, how are we going to, elevate this and amplify this? And we're like,
what a gift to your marketing team.
Oh my gosh. And the answer was, what? It is so organic that we just need more cameras in the dugout.
Yeah.
And that became the answer. It wasn't about an animation. It wasn't about a graphic. It wasn't about, it was just about getting more images of them being them. And it was great.
Yeah. And there is such there's such an energy with that group of guys that were playing together. Right. We were at the ballpark when, is it the cycle, right?
Yes.
When the cycle happened.
Could you imagine that night? Have you ever been part of anything like that?
No, it was probably one of the most perfect nights. And I do remember, again, it was one of those things where there's 81 games and you pick and choose. And we had been to the game with the Zach Brown band.
Oh yeah. That was another great game.
A great game. It was a great night. And then I just remember looking at my husband and thinking I think I want to go to more baseball games this year. This is fun. Right. And we hadn't traditionally gone to a lot of games. And then my son gets involved and he wants the City Connect hat, which I cannot wait to talk to you about City Connect. And then, we're all there and my husband just I kept looking at him and he was weirdly gleeful. I kept looking at his face and I don't exactly know what's happening. And he and my son are just looking at each other oh my gosh. And Ellie was up again. And then he hit the last, and it was it was the cycle. And the whole crowd was electric. Karen,
it just
you were there. How did you feel?
Well, first of all, that's what, since the time of the Gladiator, people have congregated around live competition. So that's always the possibility, but there are those rare moments when it is a phenomenal crowd and just something unbelievable happens.
Yeah.
That's really why people go to any live sporting event, because they think maybe it'll be that game,
Right.
And that's even possible when you have a team that's whatever sport it is and they're not winning, you could still have something exceptional go on.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those last things, no matter how much you do with virtual, how great my television is, my ability to just control everything on my phone.
Yeah.
There's still nothing better than getting in front of something to watch it live, not knowing what might happen next. So that night was just proof positive that, and it was also for me, again, post-COVID, this is really now the normalized time. We're all kind of back. Everybody's used to being back and we're just all in 23, I was speaking of, and now too. But it was really just people were out and they were just grateful to be out having fun. And then this young team, and, it was a rough 22.
Yeah.
Because the team was still, we knew back in 2020, 2021, that we had to make some adjustments. We knew we had a phenomenal pipeline.
Yeah.
but we had to give those players needed time to develop because honestly, you find a great athlete who's 18 or 19, but you still got to fine tune them, if you will.
Yeah.
So our farm system in 2019, our farm system of 30 teams was ranked 26th to 28th. Well, now it was up to 2, 5th, 6th, 2nd, all of a sudden, but that took some time and those guys started to emerge and it was just great. And one of my favorite days last year, not only was the cycle, but the fact that Joey Votto, who was he had a really career ending surgery potentially for many athletes, but only Joey could come back like he did. And then he was part of some phenomenal games, contributing at a level that was right in there with that same crop of young guys. Yeah. So that's what, again, was just it was such a magical season.
It was. I was actually there for his first home run. The first day that he was back and he got it. It was a home run. I feel like, right?
He was looking at the dugout. Yeah, it was great.
Yes. Yeah. It was, I don't know. I mean, can we have a repeat? That was great. 2023 was amazing.
It was. And, again, it speaks to, I think, the heritage of this whole city, if you will, because that's one of the things. I'm born and raised in Cincinnati.
Same. Yeah.
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 And even having been part of bidding and securing the All-Star game and just really having to, at that brand iteration that we brought forward some of the retro and the mustaches, and then the 150-year anniversary in 2019 that we celebrated through the conversation of all the uniforms throughout the years. But the reality is that the Cincinnati Reds are generationally tied to people. Yeah. So we're lucky it's a baseball town. When I travel around and go to other cities, other ballparks, the teams are great or they've got a good fan base, but the city is ambivalent about them. Whereas you don't have that here. And when the team started, Cincinnati was the 7th or 8th largest city in the United States. So it was right out on par with Boston, Philadelphia, New York, and everybody was playing baseball. Baseball in those days was a social club. Right. People had their day jobs. That's how they made their living. And then afterwards, they would all gather in parks because there's no air conditioning. Right. They'd eat picnics. They would all wear different hodgepodgey clothes and they would play baseball and they were social clubs. And of course, Cincinnati's always had entrepreneurs here. I think of the influx of German and influence or whatever, but there were brothers, entrepreneurial brothers. One was a phenomenal baseball player. The other one was so-so. But in 1868, he had this idea. He's like, you know what? What if we paid guys to do this for a living and we make it into something? Because he was seeing people coming to watch. Wow. He was getting things. So they did. They put a notice out in the big cities at that time saying, we are going to hire professional baseball players. And people came from New York, they came from all over, and they tried out, and he fielded the first professional team, meaning they were actually paid to do this for a living. And they have a contract, the structure of which, some of it is still in the language today because it was about obligations to practice. It was about decorum, et cetera. But what was so cool in this entrepreneurial family, the Wright brothers, not the Flight brothers, right, but the baseball Wright brothers, is that they found a woman in over the Rhine who was from Prussia, I believe. And he decided that we need to dress them differently. So the first time they made uniforms, he called them costumes almost. That's why they had the red stockings and the puffy pants. And
they were originally called the Red Stockings,
they were because of what they wore. Yeah. So he did a couple smart things where, number one, he made sure that they looked cohesive and he got them and they were practicing. But then he had a really genetic marketing brain like most entrepreneurs do. And he had like almost a press angle where they had a writer that traveled with them and they had an advanced group. Much like how a circus would do it back then, they would go into Philadelphia in advance and say, the Red Stockings are coming through for 3 days and they will play anybody who wants to play them, basically. Wow. So they barnstormed all the other major cities in 1869 and they went 57-0, I think. But what they really did was start a movement because when they were in a city like Boston and the people who were entrepreneurial in Boston saw how many people came, they put up their own notice. Hey, we're going to field our own professional team. Wow, so that's how it all started. But then the other cool thing that makes Cincinnati unique when it comes to baseball was in the 30s when Powell Crosley owned the Cincinnati Reds, he also owned WLW Radio, which was carrying the games, and he perfected and mass manufactured the transistor radio. So think about that supply chain loop. He had one of the few entertainment products on earth, which was baseball. Mm-hmm. He owned the team. Right. And he also owned the device that delivered it to the people. So it was this really amazing thing. And the FCC at that time, they hadn't really curtailed the power of AM signals. So WLW, you could get in 38 states,
Sure.
and
so he was broadcasting
everywhere. And team, it wasn't as
Wow.
populated of a league yet. So you started some generational fans and a pretty massive regional footprint, in the early turn of the century. So that kind of generational connection. And we see it today, because right now I can sit here and tell you what athletes I like, and then I'll remember what team they're with. Because there's a little bit of that now, because they've almost become independent brands, if you will.
They have been independent.
Exactly. And because of that, generational connectivity to the Cincinnati Reds, because somebody whose grandfather lived in Lima and that person who's now in their 30s lives in Atlanta, they'll remember that, and they can still follow us on a device. So it's been a really cool connecting thing for us. And really did help. You mentioned the Nike process.
Yeah, but I mean, you've gone through you personally have been with the Reds for so many years that you've gone through so many iterations of players and marketing and promotions. And then we have City Connect that goes live last year. Talk us through that process, because I'll tell you, like you saw, Cooper, who works here, he has the hat.
He had the hat.
My son, everybody I know are obsessed with City Connect. So talk us through that.
Yeah, because one of the things when I started with the Reds in December of 2006, and I was like, what is going to be my metric? Because I started in marketing, and I was like, what's going to be my metric for success? And I'm like, you know what? In February, if I'm in the grocery store and somebody's wearing Reds gear, I'll know we're doing something right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we're going to be part of the everyday life. So the City Connect, first of all, I credit the league, Major League Baseball, signed an agreement to start a relationship with Nike, no longer Majestic, but Nike. And the reason they did that is because Nike are the experts at retail. And retail, their target is 12 to 18-year-old, urban youth, and they use sports and athletes as a way to fuel that kind of marketing to that group and beyond.
Right.
And that goes, then they get into specific sports. But baseball was smart to partner with Nike on this. And what Nike had already done with hockey and NBA, they had kind of blown up the traditional mindset of the team uniform, right?
Right.
And so
the look of it.
Because people, and again, this next gen, you always have to change with the times. And people today, because they have so much creative freedom on their phones, they can cut and paste and mix match anything. Their expectation to have everything consistent no longer exists.
Right.
They have a much broader acceptance of a brand iterating itself differently. So they created a process where these uniforms that they did for NBA, NHL, and baseball, they're referred to as the City Connect. The idea is, how do we connect a professional sports team to its locale, its city, not just to the sport that it's in or its independent history, but about the city that it's in. So that's
brilliant. First of all,
it really is. And I'm so glad we weren't the first group of teams, because we were in, I think, year 3, and they were releasing 6 teams a year, or maybe we were year 4. But so we were not the first team.
Yeah, but think about how connected Cincinnati is to, the story you just told, right?
Absolutely.
Like, that just is a brilliant way to reconnect the city with our professional baseball team.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, timing wise, how fortunate we were is that we started with Nike. It was our turn at the plate here.
Yeah.
We had our first kind of gathering with them. There was 4 of us at the Reds who worked with them. And then going into season of 2021, we were only at 20% capacity, but it was time to start our Nike process. And we knew our debut of the uniform was going to be at some point in 2023.
Okay.
So there we sit. And, at that point, we knew that our team was going to be going through a big adjustment, the way they were modeling our players through. So we just put our blinders on to anything else besides where Nike wanted to take us. And they are truly brand ninjas. They are experts. And the people we worked with, they understood what to ask us, what to get to. And we were emphatic on that call, because we had just done the 2019 150 years of Reds baseball, and we had just done 15 uniforms. You know, we felt with that in the All-Star game, we were done looking backward, because the truth was, in 2019, we really made our change in our baseball model that we were going to have to develop our own players. we were going to be about the young, unproven, exciting talent. So we said to Nike, we had a few boundaries we were allowed to put in, and we said,
otherwise it was like, Jesus, take the wheel, right?
Exactly. And we were like, when whatever you do for the Reds,
Right.
we don't want anything retro. We don't want anything looking back. We don't want anything
that would
to
be
do
easy
with.
to do.
It started here. We're the handlebar mustache, Mr. Red Legs.
Right.
We had pinstripes. We had the cut off sleeves with Barry Larkin's era. You know,
Right. It's very
and we're
easy
like,
to
we
do.
don't want anything looking backwards. We just don't. So it was fascinating because after Nike, and again, there's a lot of deep dives, a lot of time, a lot of tension, a lot of talks.
Yeah.
They came back and they said this. They go, you know what? Cincinnati's pretty stealth. You guys are a stealth city. You are global.
Yep.
You are relevant. You have every single thing going, and you don't want
Under the
anybody
radar?
to know.
Under the
And
radar.
they're like, you don't want anybody to know. And they said, and you guys are so much like an Iron Man or a Clark Kent, you know, that everybody's just wants to be like this. But when you guys put on a uniform, or when you decide to get into soap production, you're going to be the best, or aviation, you're going to lead the charge, or whatever it is you guys decide to do, you put on a purpose.
Yep.
You go to be the best, and you do it in a way that it is a collaborative group. It is not an individual star.
You're right. You see that everywhere.
That was their
Children's
take.
Hospital just had their number one.
They just had their number one.
Yep.
So that was what their take was. So then they iterated this uniform, and they presented, they said, we think from what we've learned, the best way to connect your city, you need to do black, and you need red to be like infrared. Study about infrared. Infrared energy is not visible to the eye. It's present. It's underneath. And they go, we want to bring red, but we want the red to be just kind of seen through it, and kind of underneath the black. It'll still shine. You'll notice the red, but it won't be the dominant story, because that is not who your city is.
Right.
We also told them our other thing was we wanted Cincy.
Yeah.
We're like, we want Cincy. We don't want to take the natty. We don't want Cincinnati.
No.
We want to make this Cincy. That was one of our other big directives. Those two, nothing backwards, and use Cincy. So there it was.
Where it came.
And it came together. And, you know, we were, again, because we know our market a little better than they do, just what people are comfortable with, what they want to buy. We made a couple little tweaks, you know, just recommendations on what you do with the belt, the sock.
Right.
We made a change to the hat. I think the hat is extremely popular.
The
Really
hat
good.
is sexy as hell.
Oh my
Everybody
gosh.
loves the hat.
And you know what else I would love if it wasn't cumbersome to wear is the batting helmet.
Yeah.
Because the batting helmets are matte black, which is really unusual. So they're really cool. So it's just great. And so we were, again, this is a huge risk. Think about this. So we come off of the 2022 season. We lost 100 games.
Right.
It was a very difficult year for our fans, our fan base. We knew in 23 that we were going to launch this uniform, and it is a secret. You have to sign NDAs. I mean, it is the most secretive process.
Like under lock and key.
Under lock and key.
How many people at the organization knew? You probably
I think there might have been 5 of us who even had seen it. It was very protected.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Very protected up until the time you got closer to starting to plan to launch it.
Sure.
And so then anybody who did get to see it had to sign something.
Yeah.
You know, it was that secretive of a process. But we did break the rule a little bit where, as they were kind of already in production, we couldn't have changed it. We actually took it and showed it to 2 of our players just to get a raw reaction. And I think when we saw their reaction, we're like, this is going to work.
Can you tell who you showed it to?
Yeah, we showed it to Jonathan India and Hunter Green.
Right.
And those both guys went, whoa. So that's when we knew that this was going to be okay.
Yeah.
So then we had the dilemma. Because you don't get to control when you launch it. So we really wanted to launch it on Friday night, May 19, when we were playing the Yankees at home. It was the first time the Yankees, we'd had a home game with them since like the 50s.
Right.
And that was a postseason game or something. So the reason we did that, at that time, we were being told by baseball operations in 23, you know, our team, it'll be better. It's going to stay better. We're hoping to get to 500. We got a lot of unknown talent. We just got to see how it starts. So our thinking was that this uniform, which is about the city, let's put it on a night when the whole world is watching a team. Well, the whole world watches the Yankees.
Right. Exactly.
Or the Angels because of Ohtani.
Right.
One of the two.
Right.
So we knew the world would be watching, and we thought that was the best night to launch it. And it really turned out to be true.
Right.
Yeah. So it sold like crazy, and it just resonated. It was the right thing at the right time. And it was really developed by people who were in touch with athletes, because that's one of the strong suits of Nike, is that they really know what the athletes like and they know what youth like. So they presented something that was really basically 99% of the way there. And we just kind of pushed it over the top.
And it was connecting our city back to the Reds. And you were talking about it earlier off camera, but talk about the stats, like the merchandise, the numbers.
So from on a blended number from the start of the season or even the calendar year, and City Connect was almost 40% of our sales. But when you just take out the months where it wasn't available for sale. So what percentage of our sales was it from the time it hit our team shop till the end? It was 47%.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? And
it is funny.
The top 5 items, you'll laugh. It was Ellie De La Cruz jerseys in small, large, medium. It was basically all sizes.
Yes.
Yeah. Because he's just such a story,
so
such
fun.
a phenomenon.
He is. Yeah. His story is kind of, it's so amazing. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool.
The other thing that really hit well for us last year were the changes in the rules.
I was going to ask about that.
Oh my goodness.
Because honestly, that has become there's this like, love and hate for this rule. I'm on the love side. Where do you sit?
I love it because I think it's fast. And I think the goal was not just to eliminate time, but it was to increase action.
Yes.
The pitch clock does that, meaning that it keeps things moving more quickly. They made the bases a couple inches bigger. You wouldn't think that mattered. But if you think about a stolen base, it usually comes down to the tag.
Yes.
So if you increase a couple inches on both ends, you basically make it a lot more possible, doable, competitive. The number of stolen bases went way up. The other thing that they did, which again, back in my day, when you played baseball or softball, you had a position and there was a territory you were allowed to be in. And if you were a center fielder, you couldn't leave a certain width or depth,
Yeah.
But in baseball, the analytics are so impressively accurate that they could pretty much predict where a guy was going to hit within, X amount of feet.
Sure.
So they were shifting the fielders all over the place. So the difficulty to get a hit. So it made the game less action. It was boring. They were so they eliminated that.
Right.
Everybody had to stay in their lane.
Right.
The pitch clock was going on.
Yeah.
The bases were a little bigger. And if you went into a tie, then they'd start the extra innings with somebody on base. So it made an enormous difference. And just hearing even from our athletes, they made those changes in the minor leagues a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know that.
They were kind of used to it. And in a way, we had a little advantage because our major league roster was so full of brand new guys that this is something they kind of knew.
Yeah.
But the other athletes we had who hadn't been part of a game with that cadence, they were like, wow, I can't even go and chill out in between innings. Sure. I got to be ready to get back out there.
Yeah.
And so
it kept the action going constantly.
Oh my gosh, it really did. And I just think the fan feedback was great.
Yep.
It's been a really positive thing for the game.
Yeah. No, I thought it was amazing. Again, we went to more games this year than we've ever gone.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and
you're a part of my target audience.
Well, and the thing is we're up in the WC, as you call it, right?
Westchester.
On the Westchester, coming down. And I even took advantage of the box seats up at the Budweiser bar.
How fun are those?
So I have to tell you, my 89-year-old grandpa was a little upset about the elevator situation because he had to do steps. But I was like, you are capable of doing steps. Get your butt up the steps, Grandpa. You can do it. And I bought it for his birthday. So I got, because I didn't want him to be squeezed in seats anywhere. Yeah. So it was a much better experience for him. And he loved it. Did he love it? Karen. Okay, good. It's loved
and those were additional seats because, part of it, again, the ballpark is iterated since they built it. It's 20 years old last year. Who knew? Isn't that crazy?
No, I know. It is crazy.
Yeah, but that's another fun, great seat.
Yeah. And it was a Friday night. It was the Yacht Rock night, which again was so much fun.
Those hats
were the best. I'm telling you, I went to every great game.
I really wanted to get Yacht Rock back because I think it was one of those things that people who knew what Yacht Rock was showed up, but the majority of people weren't sure what it was.
Yep.
And then they just happened to stay because it was there and it was after the game and the games are quicker. So they just hung around and they're like, this is fantastic. Yes. They had so much fun.
Yes. But those seats were so great.
That's awesome.
It was so great. And we did that. We brought in Jersey bikes. We had dinner up there. We drank the beers. We did the yacht rock. We all wore the hats. It was so much fun.
That's amazing.
I mean, I will say your programming this past year too, it was so fun.
Good. Well, that's again, part of what you got to realize is that we have a lot of games. And we made a decision back in 2007, really my first year in the organization, to really recognize that if the majority, the majority of way we can make revenue to pay for everything is to get people to come to games.
Yeah.
So, but really, if you think about that and you have a family, everybody, you basically are asking for time.
Yes.
You need people's time. And so that's why we decided to really think about our consumers and our users against a time model.
Yeah.
What does it take, for a family to come?
Yeah.
How far in advance do they plan? What are they looking for? What about an entertainment seeker? What are they looking for? So having thought that way and then kind of developing the ballpark experience that way, our goal was to try to get everybody from whatever walk of life they were in, there's a reason that they might want to come to more than one game if that's possible. That was always kind of the mindset we had. And there was, I had seen the gentleman who had started Starbucks. It was the week before I got hired by the Reds. I'd watched him on a talk show and he had said with the mission for Starbucks, which do you know what it is? It was fascinating.
I think I just read about this actually.
Well, because a lot of, at that time, missions.
You just wanted a place to go in between, right?
And mission statements tended to be very corporate and very paragraphy.
Yeah.
But he was, obviously an interesting man who started those. And he goes, what our mission is to be one of 3 doors that you go through every day.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a mind-blowing way to think about things.
I just read about this, actually.
So I'm like, well, then how can we, so that was kind of what we put out to, at that time, we didn't even have a marketing department, but that's what we started to build our business model around is we're in the time business. How do we get people how do we be one of the places that they come to 3 to 6 times in the summer?
Yeah.
How do we become that place? And so that's when we really had to realize that, with baseball, unlike NFL, there is no fear of supply. The NFL has 8 home games and almost all of them are sold out.
It's finite. Yeah.
And but we have 81 home games with 40,000 plus seats. If on a great year, somebody might think there's going to be 10 sellouts at the Reds, right? So you don't have a boost from the natural tension between supply and demand. It just isn't there.
Yeah.
So you really have to figure out another reason to make people want to come. And so that began a thought process of, if we just focus on connecting, if we just stay in front of people, they'll eventually come. So that became our motto. It was about, we're in the time business and we have to connect because connect will lead to commerce. Quit trying to sell stuff. Quit trying to sell a ticket and go ahead and get more mascots. We have a lot of mascots. We do. We have, but again, that was one of those things. And when we went to do our mascots,
female mascot.
We have a female. And when we delivered Rosie Red, we manifested her into being from a legend, if you will. That was new and different. And the process of working with mascot companies, we didn't go through who regular teams go through. We researched, we talked to DreamWorks and Disney. Who do you use? And so we worked with those companies and it was funny because when we did, so we launched Mr. Redlegs with the big handlebar. And then Rosie and the mascot companies, you have to write a backstory. Because these people, this is what they do. Like they're so into it. And like there was a book written of the backstory because where had Redlegs been all this time?
Right.
Where had he been? And what about Rosie? And then they're asking us things. They're like, okay, now between Rosie and Mr. Redlegs, is there going to be some sexual tension? Is this going to be like Rachel and Ross, or is this going to be more like Mickey and Minnie where they're just kind of brother, sister? And what is that backstory? What is that chemistry? And it was a big decision to think about some of those stuff. And where we landed, we're like, what? They need to be part of an ensemble, but they're just there for the fan.
Sure.
The relationship between them is immaterial. It's about their relationship with the fan.
And Gapper, what's his relationship?
Well, Gapper was there before I came.
Yeah.
I want to be clear to say that. But he's very popular. He's like a big Muppet. I don't know.
He is.
And then with Rosie, we're like, we would like her personified. She needs to be a mix between Rosie the Riveter and Betty Boop. She's got to be both.
Yeah.
She's got to be tough, but she's got to be fun and swingy and So
she kind of reminds me of, I actually visited the Hall of Fame for the first time this year. I'm telling you, this was a year of firsts at the Reds.
Were you surprised?
I was shocked.
People have no idea what that Hall of Fame is like.
No, and I went twice this year, actually.
That's amazing.
I'll tell you the both times, but the one going through and kind of seeing a league of their own, right?
That was on display.
Yeah, that was on display.
Pretty cool.
And that's kind of what I assumed was part of the backstory for Rosie Red. And it's fun because we actually went through it with my daughter's school.
Oh, great.
It was so cool. The field trip.
Yeah.
We'll
do 10 to 12,000 kids.
It was amazing.
Yeah,
I learned so
science
much.
Of baseball, math of baseball. It's amazing.
It was so cool.
It's a great way to bring up subjects.
It is.
Yeah.
And I thought the kids were so interested in it.
Yeah,
and then they got to stay for the game.
Yeah.
But we went through it. And one of my best friends, we were going through it together, and she's like, that's my gym teacher from school who grew up in Minster, Ohio.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, your gym teacher
was
here?
In the league.
Yes, was in the league.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of pictured was Rosie's sort of backstory.
Very
I don't know.
much so. In that Hall of Fame museum, we have going into 2019 for the 150 year anniversary, we acquired a collection from a gentleman in West Virginia. He had 7,000 pieces of Reds memorabilia to add to our multiple thousand collection we already had.
And again, West Virginia.
Yes. So that was Reds country. It still is Reds country.
Yeah.
When we go there on our caravan, it's packed down there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the way we've brought the things forward, displayed them. And what's another cool thing is when our current athletes, they come and they get to go and look at it. We have visiting athletes that go look through it and they just can't get over it. And now that the other thing the league did last year that made the game more exciting, you will now play every team every year. That was never the case. You would always play just a handful of your guys and you'd overplay some. And then every once in a while you get these other teams to come in. So now you play everybody every year and it's just a matter of it's home away, but it's been great, but it's brought in an influx of tourism, people who've never been here because now their team's playing here that they want to see and they'll go to the museum and they're blown away.
Really?
Unbelievable. Yeah, it is. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. That is so fun. Yeah. We got to go this year. Like I said, twice. Another one was with the Chamber. I think the Chamber had an event, a Cincy blend there.
Coffee there. I think
the coffee there.
Yeah.
But I had never been. And we were talking about it with my grandpa when we brought him to the game. And I was like, we need to get you into the museum next time. Yeah.
That's what we tend to see is that it just, it's one of the rare things about sports. Because again, back to the principle.
Yes.
It's time. If you spend time in your life doing something, it becomes part nostalgic for you.
It does.
So when people go through the museum, it just evokes nostalgia for them, which is amazing. And I've said this often, because I love professional sports. I love theater. I love anything live. Mm-hmm. But being a fan, if you go to an NFL game, because I go to have season tickets, if you go, you go early. I wear the gear. I'm going early. I'm hanging out in parking lot with strangers. We're all friendly. I get into my section. We're all together. We stand the entire time. There's a jerk line because people are just aggressive.
Yep.
I agree to be part of a mob. I mean, NFL fans, when you go, you are kind of part of a mob.
Yes.
You go to, and you're a unit with your whole section, strangers. You go to now FC, which I love to go. We have a suite there and I love to go to FC. When you go to FC or any MLS game or any soccer around the world, you go in and again, the fans, you're a unit. You wear scarves, you sing, you're like in a choir, you've got drums and everybody's in this whole thing as another unified entity, if you will. But you go to a baseball game and you come in with your people, you come in with whoever you came with, your 2, 3, 5 of you, you walk in not expecting to talk to the people around you.
Right.
You don't expect to stand the whole time.
No.
You are not trying to get to know everybody. You're not interacting unless there's amazing, like the games you were there. Yeah. You probably did high five people around you. But baseball, it's a little different of a game. It's a little
personal, isn't it?
It's much more. And, we do brand equity studies, and it's one of the strengths of baseball because it is one of those places that people go to for companionship. It's a place they will go with people they want to visit, spend time with, make a memory with.
Yeah.
They'll go there because they can have that kind of relationship time.
Yeah.
So
you can have conversations.
Exactly.
I also
so they're all different. It's kind of fun to see the different reasons why people go.
I never thought of it that way. But now that you say that, I think about, even I mentioned to you that I am related. My husband's uncle is John Keysweater, right? He's
salute.
Right. The great John Keysweater. He actually gave me a ton of great ideas for podcast guests actually at Christmas. He's like, okay, now write this name down and write his name down. But I feel like some of the times that we've gone to games with him, he brings in his pencil, his notepad, right? Now I know he's a journalist at heart, but he writes notes about the game. He and what is his name? Howard, John's friend. Is it Howard? Howard. Anyway, he's on NPR with John Keysweater.
Oh, I know who you mean. Yeah,
Yes,
the writer.
okay. Yes, the writer.
He used to be a writer. Now he does NPR. Yes.
But the two of them, I just see these two older men sitting there with their pencils, writing notes. They keep stats.
Absolutely.
They keep stats. And I see that more and more where people keep their own stats.
Well, that's one of the things I'm tasking our current team with is that I grew up at a time when I would go to the Riverfront Stadium and you would get the scorecard.
Yes.
60% of the people were keeping score. It was part of what they do. And it's just kind of a lost thing and it's not being translated generationally.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're trying to get people back to scorecards, but we would love for kids in our Reds Heads Kids Club to understand the game and be able to score an inning or to kind of pass that on. Because again, it's another way to create a piece of like evidence you were there. With electronic tickets, it's hard. It used to be people would save tickets. And so now what can we give them that makes them, evokes a reminder of what they did then? Or so, keeping score is one of those things that we love to just make sure kids understand and know how to do.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah, but it's a stats game, man.
It is a stats game.
They just generate so much. I'm amazed. And you do fantasy football. I can even do fantasy football and I have fun doing it.
Yeah.
Fantasy baseball is so complex.
Yeah.
Because there's just
it's long.
So many variables. Well, and when they have drafts and you have rotisserie league and they're just intense and they're general managers and you buy players and it's like, oh, my head explodes, but that's what you see. And I started at the Reds as a casual fan. I just went to games growing up and I went there to have fun, but I've come to understand how intensely complex games are and what goes on. And one of the cool things we get to do is they put us next to a pitching machine and they had the ball come, and just so you can get a sense of it. Because even in the stands, you think, oh, they're throwing that ball hard. But when you're actually in the batter box and you have to have your brain process this thing, it's you see it, you see the ball, but your mind's taking it in and it's already back here.
Right. Oh, so I went to
and it moves like you can't get over.
Oh yeah,
the change. Like when you're watching it, it's literally going from here to here.
Yeah,
that's why it's so hard to do.
It's so hard to do. I'm part of the executive leadership team for American Heart Association.
Oh yeah,
so we got to do Go Red. Yes, Go Red for women.
We're gonna do it again. Hopefully the weather will be better.
I know. It worked out though. Yeah. It did. It worked out. But we, Leanne and I, so Leanne, owner of Resolve, we went down and we got to hit. And even that, I was like, I could not hit the damn
And how far is first base? Okay. We have a staff softball game.
I know.
First base is far.
You have a staff
I mean,
what
we do.
Yeah, that's
at the end of the season, we go out there, and have a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is far. And to get a ball to get a ball to the wall.
No way.
It is far.
No way. No way.
Okay, you mentioned the Zach Brown thing. How fun was that?
The Zach Brown band concert was phenomenal.
I could not believe that happened. There was a CBS Sunday morning story that featured this sad news about Hop having, ALS. And when that aired, we had some people in our ticketing department who also work with the promoter, and they're like, baseball finally, because it was always Lou Gehrig disease and ALS was always associated with baseball, but baseball never really embraced it across the league. But they finally were doing that. And so we reached out we had people reach out and offer to the band and to Hop to say, look, if you guys would ever consider, even though you fill up stadium shows, and the difference was they fill up stadium shows with 11-day load in. Yeah. Like they load in Terraplast for the field to put chairs, and they build these stages and screens. And because somebody writes a big check to go to a stadium show, they want a show.
They want a show. Yeah.
So we were like, this would have to be down and dirty, and it would be post game. We will take our revenue and give it to you guys as a donation for ALS, but it would be an amazing thing, because it's tied to baseball. And so
I jokingly said I went to a Zach Brown band game or a Zach Brown band concert and got a game for free.
Right.
But because
the game went into extra innings, and I was so glad that I mean, we lost. It was very sad.
I know
it
was a really sad loss. Yeah.
It was.
But it was a good game.
It was a great game. And to get that done, because again, even though they agreed to do post game, if we do a typical post game like Yacht Rock, it's basically one flatbed that we drive a flatbed out there and it's a pretty quick turn. Well, again, Zach Brown could not cut back on their equipment and their musicians. So it was a massive undertaking. And almost our entire front office volunteered. I was one of the people out there running out there pushing the stage.
Okay, so we were like right there in section like 112, 111.
That was a good spot.
Yes, we were in a really good spot. So we could see it all kind of coming together. And the energy in the stadium, because there were so many people there.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
It was like so great.
So it was great. And so we got lucky. We're going to get it again with this Thomas Rhett. He's amazing.
We're coming.
Oh, good.
We're coming.
Because the thing you see, everybody these days, whether you're an actor, a brand, an organization, everybody's philanthropic. So now that they're seeing that there's a way to showcase or spotlight a cause, so that's kind of cool. So because you mentioned our programming, but we really feel like for 6 months a year, you've got to make sure every group. Yeah. We had a Sesame Street thing, we'll always try to do the zoo. We always do something with the zoo.
With the zoo, yeah.
I love when Sam the Eagle flies. If you haven't been there
I have been there for that. Yeah.
Sam the Eagle.
It is really cool.
We only get him for a handful of times. And I when you ask, people will say, why don't you have Sam all year long? Well, nature wins because they lose feathers.
Yeah. Oh,
and then they can't lift. They don't have enough feathers to lift certain times of the year.
Oh my God. I didn't think about that though. Yeah. No, it is. It's so fun. I love our Cincinnati Reds. Yeah. But it has been a thing where it's grown on me, I think, more and more and more. And like I said, all the changes and
the game has changed since we even got into it. When I started there, social media wise, just from 2000, think about the world from at the end of 2006 to today.
Oh, it's totally different.
Exactly. I mean, the most innovative thing we got to do in my first years or so there was
like tweet.
They had not yet. That came down the road. It was digital billboards on the highways. That was like the new thing.
Yeah.
And we had these digital boards and they had the software capability that you could flip out. When it was your rotational turn, you could rotate what message you put up there. Mm-hmm. We're lucky because we have in-house creative geniuses.
Yeah.
So we were one of the first groups that really used those boards and had so much art that we could trigger so that if all of a sudden, like it could just say Reds play tonight, Reds won, because if the team was on the road, we'd have boards that said, second, tie, turn on the radio. So that was like the most innovative instant message you could do. And now, I mean, it's just completely different. One of the few upsides of COVID is Cincinnati, for our fan base, using electronic ticketing, our adoption rate was maybe 11%. Well,
before COVID?
Before COVID.
Oh my
people
gosh.
just weren't using digital at all in this market. And we just could not get them over they just couldn't do it.
Yeah,
but
get them over the
thanks
hump.
to COVID, everybody got electronically savvy fast. And now we're over 90-something% adoption. And it's so much easier
to get in.
Well, yes. And really just from our business, because literally we still had, when I first got there, it was printed tickets and somebody would call and you need to run it down to the will call window and you had the will call lines and there was just so much hands-on distribution that you had to do all the time. And now it's just seamless. And when people go to buy any, no matter what your sport is, or a theater ticket, there is an entire secondary marketplace. And if it turns out at the last minute you can't go,
then you can sell your ticket.
Sell it.
Yeah, you can
and
sell your
to
ticket.
empower a consumer, that's actually, again, improved people's willingness to commit to going to a bunch of stuff, knowing that they have a way out in case they can't.
In case they can't.
And that used to be your only option, was to take your own tickets and stand
then
on
go
the
stand
corner.
on the corner.
Who's
oh my
gonna do
gosh.
that?
Yeah, no one's going to do that anymore. Yeah.
That's all happened in the last, 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
It's an amazing change.
You've seen a lot of changes.
Oh,
what are you excited about as you think about like this coming season and then like the next maybe couple of years? What are you excited about?
I'm excited to see us have the kind of team we had last year. We're going to always have that kind of team, because the pipeline of talent that we have and the baseball model we've adopted, to where when we do draft, we just got the number 2 draft pick coming up. We got that. So when we draft, the way got our entire player development system in an effective curriculum from the time that they spot athletes, they draft the athlete, they train the athlete, so that we're going to have this consistent performance. And it took the patience and loyalty of our fans to let us make that paradigm shift, but it has happened, and we will be a 500 team here forward. And it just, like you said, it just lifts up the spirit, the mood. Look at the difference since the Bengals got good. And even this year when you had this terrible injury, people were still proud to be Bengals fans, and they were still happy to be there. We kind of have a mission statement at the Reds, and it's your why do we exist statement.
Yeah.
And it is to win championships and inspire people. That's it.
Yeah.
Because we can literally lift, and it's not because the Reds have some magic power, but it is the human experience. So when people come together for something shared that brings out competition and winning, it just has a wonderful halo effect.
Yeah, it does.
It's great.
Actually, Brendan Cole, he was on our podcast and we talked about this sort of like winning effect. And, when the Bengals play, when the Reds play, when we bring all these different events downtown and, you're hosting the Pink concert and all those big events. Our city can handle it.
Absolutely.
Our city kicks ass on handling that. I mean,
we run such a phenomenal coordination between all of the entities. You're right. We hear it from all the bands that come in.
Yeah.
And we hear it from people who are just traveling in, the visiting teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it literally kicks ass. When Taylor Swift was in town, there was a Reds game. I
was losing sleep because I knew that weekend, I'm like, we are somehow down there with the river. So we only have 3 sides. We don't, you can't really just go anywhere in the river to go across. We're going to potentially have, 80,000 to 100,000 people in a limited time frame. This is going to be catastrophic. I just couldn't figure out. So pre-planning.
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And again, coming down from the WC, we got to park really easily. We got out of there easily. Everyone was gracious. The police officers were amazing. There were so many people down there. Taylor Swift watched the fireworks from the Reds game. She sat at her piano and watched the fireworks. There they were.
We're like, well, we got to, what are you going to do?
But she embraced it, which I thought, I was like, oh, it's so cool to like connect the whole city, right?
And we talked to Bob Bettinghouse and letting us know that there was an adding a date. And, we're like, what are you going to do? We moved our time a little bit, but we're going to have some of that, this coming summer, but we're just going to go with it. But people are really good. And what's really nice is that we talked to Brendan in the chamber about Oktoberfest, the Flying Pig. Everybody tries to share dates. The way MLB scheduling has progressed, and that's the right word, it's better.
Yeah.
Where every city, when you go in, because we're going to get our 2025, 2020, we're already thinking 2026.
Yeah.
You're allowed, each baseball team is allowed to come up, up to 8 things, prioritization.
Oh, okay.
They have points that we can kind of say, because for the Reds, it's imperative we open at home.
Yes.
So that's like one of our number one things. You can never take that away.
Yes.
And then we kind of go backwards, from there, but we're allowed to prioritize because we want to try to never on fireworks Sunday, Labor Day weekend, you don't want to get in the way of that. And we have a risk there because if we get picked up as the night game, which you don't know till late in the season, then that could mess that up. So we really try to work around each other collaboratively. It's so nice. I don't know if that happens everywhere.
I don't know either. But again, like for those of us that aren't part of the system necessarily, like it's just, I don't know. It just works. And I'm just really excited about that.
Yeah.
And this is great. Karen, you are amazing. I could have a part 2 with you, a part 3 with you. We could keep going. Like I'm just so happy that you came onto the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's been, I feel absolutely, blessed and chosen to have gotten to be part of this ride that this Castellini group brought in starting in 2006. It has been an incredible thing to be part of.
Yeah. No, and this is great. Thanks for taking time with us.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. Thanks. Take me out to the ball game, Steve. Holy cow. That was such a fun episode.
Sorry, I had to slam the mic. I'm so sorry. I just punched it, like uppercutted it just now. I'm sorry. I know, and I'm like, ugh.
And you want to play a wrestling match.
I try to make a home run with my fist here.
Okay. Oh, damn it. We should have said home run. Should I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, We just hit a home run with Karen Forgus. That was amazing.
One would say the bases were loaded and it was a grand slam. It was that good.
Could we say that we hit the cycle? Do you know what that is?
Not at all.
Okay, so we talked about the cycle, the missile cruise, LA De La Cruz, he hit a cycle. So he got a single, he got a double, he got a triple, and he got a home run. And that was one of the most amazing nights as far as like Cincinnati Reds games that I've ever been to.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I don't know anything about baseball. So like even as someone who's not a sports person, who doesn't follow the Reds, who doesn't follow baseball, listening to Karen was still fascinating as all get out.
You know, I knew that we were the Cincinnati Reds was the first Major League Baseball team, but I had never actually heard someone tell that story in the way that she had told it today.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
It was social clubs and people would just get off work and play some ball.
Yeah.
That was really endearing and fun. And even her conversation of how they went to Nike and got new outfits made and new merch made. And then the whole process of getting new mascots is incredible.
Yeah, the uniforms, the City Connect uniforms. I mean, they are sexy as hell. They're so cool. Every kid wants it. Not even every kid, like everybody just wants it. And I love the connection where it's like the City Connect brand. So I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I will say justice for Gapper though. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. No, Rosie Red would kick Gapper's ass in
agree.
a heartbeat.
I agree.
Heartbeat. She would take him down, give him the old 1-2, done.
Rosie is the face of the city, but Gapper is the soul.
Gapper sucks. Gapper sucks. But go Reds.
Go Reds.
Hey, guess what? You made it to the end of the podcast. That's awesome. And you know what you get for that? You get more content. Check out this content from the Resolve team, all about Rediscover Your Story podcast content right here. You click on it, you might get a treat. Find out. Steve, make it stop.